Hello everyone, and welcome to the Good Morning Trading for June 9th in the year of grace 2026. A trader speaking to traders. So, on Friday, semiconductor stocks did more than just wobble. The sector index lost more than 10% in a single session, and that's something we haven't seen since March 2020. Yesterday, the market finally caught its breath, and this morning, Asia's rebounding with quite a bit of strength. The question that'll linger throughout the session, was it just a simple jolt or the first crack in the artificial intelligence euphoria? If we knew, we'd be billionaires by the end of the month. So stay with me until the end. I'll tell you all about it. The story of a company that, for one spring, was the most valuable company in the world. And what its fall teaches us 26 years later about today's euphoria. The past sheds light on the present. 3 key issues will set the pace for our day. First, we need to see if the chip rebound looks solid. Next, we have to digest Apple's conference, where they finally unveiled their artificial intelligence strategy. We'll be coming back to that in detail. Finally, we need to get ready for tomorrow's U.S. inflation numbers, which will tell us whether the Fed can still dream of cutting rates, or if Donald Trump can keep hoping for that to boost, among other things, the market. U.S. real estate. So, a quick look at the markets. Last night, Wall Street tended to its wounds. The S&P gained over 0.30%. The Nasdaq recovered 0.86%. Only the Dow Jones stayed almost flat at minus 0.16%. However, in Asia this morning, the rebound was very strong. In Seoul, after a downward halt yesterday where they triggered circuit breakers, they did exactly the same thing, but in the other direction. This time it was the Kospi. The Korean index rebounded very sharply. It was so strong that they triggered the circuit breaker, but this time on the upside. Is a lot nicer when it happens in that direction. And the 2 memory giants, Samsung and the company Hynix, gained nearly 6%. So it's a massive move that also spread to Tokyo and the whole region. This morning, the American indices, the futures, are slightly in the green. We'll take a closer look at that with our technical analysis, so let's get started. We'll begin with the American indices, the ones that are in the green. The Nasdaq, yesterday we had our rebound on the 29 mines on the monthly middle, and we gained back nearly 600 points, almost 2%, a little over 2%, nearly 3% from the lows. And right now, thanks to what happened in Asia, especially with the South Koreans, the North Korean stock market isn't great, let's be honest. That's an understatement, of course. We have the rebound keeping us above the monthly pivot point. So I'm keeping that in mind. The monthly pivot point is just below 29,150. If we come back to test it, during the session, if we see that we bounce off of it, that could be a pretty nice entry point. So ideally, in any case, below 24,000 or 24,500. But right now, we can see that the market wants to move back up. And especially in the artificial intelligence and tech sector, since we're gaining back a little more than 0.5%. But that's really related to this, to the bullish reversal in Korea and South Korea, which also shows us just how extremely volatile the markets are. Right now, they can open at minus 10% and then reopen the next day at plus 8 or plus 10%. So you need to be extremely cautious. I told you as early as Monday that it would be Wednesday when things would be decided, especially with the American statistics, but we're off to a pretty good start here on the Nasdaq. Let's not get carried away. We haven't even retraced 50% of the drop yet. But in any case, we've started. To reduce it, we've already recovered about 1/3 so far. In any case, the monthly pivot, the middle and its monthly level are really supports you can rely on, ones you should absolutely remember and have on your charts. Otherwise, you risk missing out on some really important things. The S&P 500 is also trying to rebound. We're far from a W for now. As long as we stay above 7,400, we're good. The monthly S1 middle is also providing support. On the Dow Jones, it's a bit of a mixed bag. It hasn't managed to rebound. We're also very far from a W on the Dow Jones, but that could happen on Wednesday. That's really what all the Wall Street managers are waiting for, to see if, possibly, the Fed will be able to continue with a rate-cutting policy, which would relieve the entire sector, all indebted companies, of course, and all the companies that want to take on debt to create value and growth. In short, it concerns real estate, it concerns absolutely everyone, and it also concerns the American consumer, who's over-indebted. And let me remind you that in the United States, they buy everything. They have the habit of using deferred debit credit cards. They buy their vacations on credit every year. Everything, absolutely everything on credit. It's a life on credit, but a more dynamic one. But after all, when everyone around you is in debt, in the end, you're not really in debt. Something to think about. Let's take a look at the European indices. So the CAC 40, which hasn't opened yet at the time I'm doing this analysis, is likely to open more or less flat or slightly in the red, but in any case above 8,000 points. Here too we can see that the monthly pivot worked beautifully. And we're in a range, here it's a 15-day range on the CAC 40. There's absolutely no decision being made, so you know how ranges work. You wait. If we go down to the bottom of the range, you don't rush in to buy. You wait to see if the rebound actually happens, and then you try to buy, not at the very bottom of the range. That's not possible here. In these cases, it's all about anticipation, and that's risky, very risky. But if we break out of the range after bouncing off the bottom of the range like we did yesterday, okay, you can take a small position, and that brings us back to the middle of the range, and that's it. The profit is usually made when we return to the middle of the range. I cash out and then wait again to see if we go back down and maybe bounce off the bottom of the range. It's a pretty conservative approach, but that's what you want in the stock market. Don't take risks trying to make trades. Aim for the highest possible success rate. On the DAX, the 24,500 level, the previous week's low, perfectly respected by the market. It's almost a textbook case. Just look at 24,500. We touch it, we go down, we barely graze it, we hit exactly 24,500, and then it bounces back. So keep a close eye on that zone. If you're trading the DAX, if we come back to that level, just like with the NASDAQ, it could work out well. Gold is still dropping, nothing's changed. Bitcoin is still dropping too, nothing's changed there either. So yesterday we had the lowest point of the year, we dropped below 60,000, and now there's a technical rebound. It's gone back up 5% because we went below 60,000. Luckily there was a technical rebound, otherwise the next level would have been around $50,000. So we had this little rebound, but just 2 weeks ago we were still 20% higher. So as you can see, it's not very appealing to buy Bitcoin over the past 2 months. And things are easing up a bit. Basically, there have been a few less missiles launched. It really looks like what's happening in the Near and Middle East, since both are being affected at the same time. So yesterday it was like, I'm sending you missiles, I'm responding to your missiles. Donald Trump wakes up in the morning and says, stop sending your missiles. That's not good. The school teacher starts yelling, and the Iranians say, okay, we'll stop sending missiles. And the Israelis say, well, okay, we don't have a choice. A little less enthusiastic, though. The Israelis. So there's something a bit reassuring about the fact that they obey the school teacher. But then, is the school teacher himself reassuring? That's another matter. That's a different issue. So let's see a little bit about the atmosphere. Now, I'm going to go back to what I have, to what I think. The topic of the day, or at least of yesterday, is that Apple is finally coming out of the woods. Last night in Cupertino, at Apple's headquarters, they held their developer conference. And it was the last time that Tim Cook, as CEO, participated. He's handing over. He's handing things over to John Ternus. There you go. It's not Janice, it's John Ternus. In September, the brand made its announcement. In fact, we've been waiting for over a year now for their artificial intelligence strategy. In short, here's the summary. Basically, it's a Siri that's been completely redesigned, each time becoming a bit more contextual. We're not really sure what that means. It's partly backed by Google's Gemini model. Now that's smart. That means they're going to pay Google to use the Gemini technology instead of spending billions and billions only to possibly fall behind. They're saying, let's invest in the one that seems the most stable to us. So in the end, they make them a partner without having to spend hundreds of billions of dollars just to try to keep up. So the market's reaction? Well, honestly, not enthusiastic. The stock lost nearly 2%, and well, it's kind of the same old pattern of buying the rumor and selling the news. And then, well, Siri says Siri, hey Siri, wake up, says Siri. See, that doesn't always work either. When it works, and when it doesn't, well, there you go. It doesn't work. So it's not great. As for the analysts, they're positive about the stock. Apple, but their price targets range from $321 to over $400, which is still a huge difference. But actually, we'll know more about the scenario around autumn, in September or October this year. We need to give it 3, 4, 5 months to find out if, in the end, the new Siri will actually be adopted, and by whom? By the users. So Apple's big strength is that there are millions, tens of millions of suckers like me who buy the latest model every time because it's even better, with a camera I don't use that's even better, with amazing video capabilities, and I never shoot videos. But there you go, I'm hooked on Apple. I admit it, and honestly it makes me happy. Actually, hey Siri, play my music. Well, it works well. It works better than Samsung anyway. Wait, I even have a second one. Hey Siri, play the music. Yeah, but it doesn't do stereo. That's why it's not working. Well, I don't have a third one. I just have two. One for work and one for personal use. I'm not a drug dealer, just to reassure you. Otherwise, I'd have a third one for my lawyer. I'm about to say a lot of nonsense. I couldn't help it. It amuses me, and that's what matters. I don't know if it amuses you, but in any case, it amuses me. So, Apple. Actually, we don't really know enough. Will people actually adopt it? And if there's a profitable ecosystem within it, in any case, Apple is smart. They didn't spend billions and billions on research, development, or the technology of whoever did spend billions and billions on research and development. It's a much less risky strategy. It's not that they don't have cash, Apple. It's just that right now, they're waiting to see who will ultimately become the leader. But in any case, they don't want to be the leader in artificial intelligence. They want to use the model that works best. Today's agenda, the macro day, is extremely quiet. Today, we're waiting. Tomorrow, you got it. So, well, we have a rebound that's real, but it's still extremely fragile and needs to be confirmed. In my opinion, it won't be confirmed before Wednesday, because on Wednesday, everything could go one way or the other. What about tomorrow's inflation, which could shake everything up again? Even if U.S. inflation is high, they're not going to lower rates, and if inflation is much lower than expected, that might give the Fed some room to cut rates and give everyone some relief, with Donald Trump yelling lower, 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 lower. And also signed LePay, so Donald Trump is still waiting. Now for the little anecdote of the day that I promised you. March 2000, a company called Cisco, does that ring a bell? For a few sessions became the most valuable company in the world, worth over $500 billion. Now we're talking about $1 trillion, but back then, $500 billion. It was absolutely mind-blowing. What was Cisco doing at the time? It was selling the picks and shovels of the internet gold rush. Exactly the same role that a certain chip manufacturer plays today. For those who aren't following, that's NVIDIA. Yet, in 18 months, it lost nearly 80% of its value. At its peak, $500 billion. 18 months later, bam, down 80%. It's not because the internet failed. You are living proof of that. We're all on the internet. But it's because the price ran too far, too fast ahead of the revolution. And that's a lesson we need to remember. In one sentence, a revolution can be very real. We had the internet revolution, and now we're in the middle of the AI revolution. But the stock can already be way too expensive, way too overvalued. Never forget that. Cisco was the ultimate internet bull, down 80%. Nvidia, the ultimate AI bubble? We'll see. Well, thank you for sharing this moment with me. And if you're curious, I'll open up my world too. 5 YouTube channels: trading, economics, history, psychology, and news. They're just launching, warming up, getting broken in. You'll have access to them tomorrow, but there you go. I'm telling you about them to get you a little excited too. And we'll have 2 daily meetups, the Good Morning Trading that you already know, and then at 6 p.m. we'll have an appointment for Good Evening Chronicle, where I'll go over the day's news again with what I would call my insightful perspective. 5 channels, 2 daily shows, just 1 habit to pick up: subscribing. And here, normally artificial intelligence doesn't work. It's like Siri. And this is where it's going to trigger Siri. You'll see. By the way, I don't have it anymore. I don't remember. Let me do it again for you. 5 channels, 2 daily shows, just 1 habit to pick up. Well, that's it. Just subscribe, but you can't see it anymore. Oh well, it's fine. And stay curious. Always. I'll be back, sending you hugs, and I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao. And when I say ciao, it should actually cut off. It would be nice. Siri, I'll give you my playlist.